probably are ready. I don't know how these buttons work. Hey guys, sorry I had to run and get some water because I got the hiccups right before we started because that's how lives go. This is a Lawyer Forward Live for a Friday. We have these conversations with solo attorneys and the companies that aim to serve them. And later, the recording of this will be on YouTube and on iTunes or wherever you get podcasts. They'll all be there. So I hope you will go find it if you're not able to join us live now. Or if you are listening at some point in the future, go join the Lawyer Forward Facebook group. Just search Lawyer Forward up in the search bar on Facebook and you will find it. Today, we are with Jessica Collins. Jessica, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I've got two big things going on. One,
Okay.
I had to get my blood drawn today, which is the worst. And I have told these doctors like test if you're going to take my blood, take it once and test me for everything. Like
Yeah.
literally everything at the one time. Test me for Ebola, I don't care. But they won't do it and they just keep drawing blood. And then also we got a puppy yesterday. So that's what's going on.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have lots of comments on both of those
Yeah.
topics
We
because
well,
the
no,
whole Elizabeth Holmes
yeah.
trial and the blood drawn is just very interesting to me because
Okay, that sounds like
she
law stuff. Let's talk
it
more
is
about
lost.
puppies.
Okay.
So, yesterday, our daughter Ellie, she is 18 and she wants to do train dogs, like train service animals. And so we go to this school in St. Louis, and they tell us all this program and all these details, and it's like $20,000, and it takes a long time, and it's really hard to do. And they're like, but to come, you're gonna need a dog to train. And of all of the list of problems that they presented to us, my wife and my daughter went, we could get a puppy. That we could do. And so literally we came home last night and within seriously probably an hour of being home, there was a puppy in my house. I thought I was getting rid of a kid. I thought a kid was going to move out, but instead I just got another puppy. So that's what we're doing. Okay, guys, today we're going to talk to Jessica. These conversations, Jessica, are generally pretty free flowing. We're learning about you and your practice and some ideas, and then we just sort of pivot and have a chat. I do want to talk to you because you moved from being being employed. I went solo straight out of law school, and people think that's weird. I think it's weird to have a job for a long time and then go out into the universe. So I want to talk to you about that. So tell me about where you are now, a bit about your practice history, who you are, that kind of thing.
So I started my practice a year ago, September 2020, middle of pandemic. I thought it would be a great idea to leave my job and go out on my own, which I still stand by. It was a great idea. So I've been on my own for a year now. I do plaintiffs work and workers' comp, pretty much the whole spectrum of injuries. If you're injured and it's someone else's fault, I can help. So, and that's from car accidents, slip and falls, to brain injuries. I have a couple brain injury cases. So cover the whole spectrum.
And it sounds like, I mean, you must have done that thing. When I came out, everybody said, "Oh, you need to go work for somebody else so you can see what you like. Basically, go and get experience in a firm, and you'll try different things on the firm's dime, and then you'll get niched." And usually, what it seems like actually happens in those scenarios is a firm will hand you work. Often it's stuff that somebody else doesn't want to do, and then you become identified as the person who does that thing, and then it's like the switching cost of if you go out on your own or you go to another firm, so you sort of get like wedged into a practice area. Did you, as you left and went on your own, did you have a reevaluation of do I want to do a different practice area? Like what was sort of the conversation with yourself about choosing what you were going to focus on after you left?
Yeah, when I first started law, I actually did a little bit of family law. I did some domestic violence work, which is great work, but I was quickly able to narrow that out. That I didn't want to focus on that practice area, and then I got a job in workers' comp, and I did workers' comp defense for about 5 years. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into that. I thought after 5 years, that's going to be my specialty and that's all I can do. So I left that and went to civil defense and did more accidents based. But you are right that when you start at any firm, your caseload is usually what people don't want. So I had the really old 5, 6 year cases that were just gross and complicated. And I also had half my caseload was construction defect. And I came from workers' comp defense to into construction defect and got thrown into a mediation, overnight. And my boss was like, okay, this is how you negotiate. Da, da. I'm like, no, no, no. I know how to negotiate. What does a roofer like? What do I care? What does my client actually do? Like the specifics of it. So learn very quickly lots of different areas. And, in that area of law, you're just relying on your experts. But took all of that. And then I kind of branched into car accidents. I became kind of the go-to at my firm for can't really say the client's name, but we represented a rideshare company. And so I got a lot of those cases, UIMs. So I defended a lot of those cases. And then I was, just in the middle of COVID, thought it's time for me to be on my own. And with COVID, I kind of also was like, who am I helping? And, I went to school to help people, and I've been representing insurance companies for 8 years. So it was time for me to make the switch and represent people, which is what I wanted to do from the beginning.
Right. So now you've switched to a consumer level practice, right? Like you're
Yes.
representing people who are now on the plaintiff side, right?
Yes.
In these kinds of incidents. Um, are you doing mostly contingency cases? Is this like a traditional PI practice where you're taking contingency cases and they, 90% of them are small, but some of them are huge, that kind of setup?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And workers' comp is also contingency fee based as well. So, yep, I do. All my injury cases are contingency fee.
Yeah, that's interesting because the economic. Sorry, okay. Now I told you that at some point we're gonna like get to me ranting about something that's been on my mind,
Yeah.
and here we are. The thing that it's always fascinating to me whenever I talk to lawyers, solo lawyers about their practice, and especially if I talk to family lawyers or criminal lawyers, really family lawyers specifically. The economics of a family law practice are so different from the economics of a PI practice or a wills practice or whatever. And what I see so often in a lot of these consultancies or people who are teaching solo lawyers how to run a law firm, the advice is given as if all those contexts are the same, and it sort of drives me crazy. And the example that I always give is like PI economics are totally weird. They're like screwed up. It doesn't make any sense. You for a PI lawyer to go put a stupid billboard up, it's dumb. It is objectively dumb unless you get one case a year from your 5 billboards that pays for the whole firm for the whole year, right? So as you've gone out, usually with a solo practice, you start with sort of the low hanging fruit. And I guess in your case, you're like also investing in some of these bigger things. How are you thinking about that in terms of do I keep taking this sort of lower hanging fruit, or do I try to finance some of these bigger cases? What's your relationship between the small cases and the big cases?
So every practice is different, and I think to lump all PI attorneys into one practice area is almost a mistake, because there are those firms that have that billboard advertisement. Some firms only do pre-litigation, some firms only do litigation. So as a solo attorney, I've been able to be kind of selective and pick and choose what cases I want. And some are in pre-lit, some are the low-hanging fruit, to where we probably will settle for low policy limits without even having to file. And I have some that are in litigation. The ones that I have that are in litigation, but honestly would cost too much for me to finance personally, I refer out. And that's the great thing about California as, attorney fee splitting. In some, I refer out and then I don't touch and I won't see again until I get the referral check at the end. But most I like to stay with, so we can kind of fee split and break it down even more of like, do you want to do, 50-50, where or you're handling experts, I'm handling the client. There's lots of different ways to negotiate. And to be honest, I have different agreements on every single one of my cases. So,
Do you have
and
a
it's
sense
also,
yet of like which, so you wouldn't know that. I know that you've read the book Lawyer Forward 5 times and have it dog-eared and highlighted and whatever.
Yes,
But
of
a
course.
lot of what I talk about in the book is the legal supply chain, is this idea that, especially in family law, we have this like cradle to grave kind of representation in a given case. We do all the things. I mean, we're bad therapists, right? We're financial managers, we're marriage counselors. I mean, we do all the
Hmm.
things across the spectrum of what somebody could need in that context. And PI, I think, in part because the economics are so different, is, I would say it's a more mature space in terms of how work is divvied up and the idea of sourcing to the right people. So, Lawyer Forward is me really arguing to people like, you need to break it up and do different things. For you, being the expert, so you're not the organizer who's going to get the big cases because you're not putting billboards out. You're the expert somebody comes in and hires to do the thing, right? Some narrower
Yes.
thing. Have you discovered which piece in the supply chain is like best for you, either because you enjoy it the most or it's the most profitable or whatever? What kind of segment of those kinds of journeys is your preferred segment?
Mostly litigation. I would say probably up to trial. I haven't done too many trials, but the litigation aspect of depositions, working the case up, retaining the experts, kind of knowing how to work up a file and what the claims adjuster wants to see in order to justify a settlement is more my niche. But like I said, on each case, it's kind of different. I mean, I'll do contract work for other firms who just don't have time
Right.
to do motions to compel. And especially being on the defense for so long, like I know how to write motions and oppose motions and stuff. So um, it's not so much. I commend the people that say this is my specialty. I only do depositions and that's my specialty, or I only do motions for summary judgment. To me, that's just so boring, and I couldn't imagine my life being the same exact same thing every day. So that's what I like about having my own practice is each day is a little different. Sometimes I only do client phone calls. I'll do a whole day of just phone calls, updating all my clients,
Yeah.
calling doctors to get reports, all that stuff. And then the next day it's no, it's blacked out and I'm just doing writing.
I mean,
So
it's an interesting, like, for the sake of conversation, I'll push back. I don't know. I, I I think a lot of those firms that are doing the same thing over and over again, like the advantage to that sort of niching is you can start scaling, you can start systematizing, you can start being more than you, in different ways, either because the technology scales it or because you got people or whatever it is. It sounds like, and this is, there's no judgment behind this. It sounds like you want to have what some people would call like a lifestyle business. Like you have to work to feed yourself, and you're going to do the kind of work that today keeps you interested and pays the bills, and then I'll go to tomorrow. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm reading from you that like you probably have a healthier detachment from your business than I do, right? Than many of us do. Like you're just like, man, I work to live, you know?
yes, I definitely do. I'm not hmm, I'm one of those people that's like, I'm hungry, I do the work I need to do. I'm not like lackadaisical,
Sure.
but it's not a 24/7 thing for me. I mean, I've written motions on Sundays because they're due that Monday and I know what needs to get done. But I can also just take a day off and I'm good at that. Um, One of the main reasons why I also went on my own is to have that balance of, I've had firms own me in my life for 8 years and I got kind of sick of that. And so just having the control over my schedule, and that's the great thing about technology is I can work from anywhere. So I can
Right.
go on road trips, and I'm lucky though that I don't get car sick, and I can work from the passenger seat for a few hours, and it's no big deal. So just having that, and then the use of technology, there's so many platforms to use to where I haven't had to hire anyone yet. And down in the future I probably will as I grow and expand. But for now, that it can be just me and I can outsource what I need to outsource, it's been great.
That's interesting. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if as years go on, does your sort of relationship with that change a little bit? Do you start to say, well, I don't want to, like, I don't want my firm to be dead when I go to sleep, which, in your,
Mhm.
when you're a solo, that is the case, right? Like you're the person creating the billable time. And so there seems to be sort of an existential crisis for every solo lawyer at some point where they're like, oh my gosh, I can't go on vacation, right? But you're sort of like getting ahead of that by creating that detachment, healthy detachment earlier, which I find interesting. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes. We were talking about before we started recording the your website and your marketing and how you're relating to the world. And so I wanted to ask you about that a little bit, specifically since you're doing the kind of practice that you are, right, in which you're a piece of like a long litigation relationship often, right? You're not cradle
Mhm.
to grave in it on a case the way I often did as a family lawyer. Do you, how do you perceive like your market? Like I think we could both agree that it wouldn't make sense for you to put a billboard up, right?
Correct.
But you've put some energy and you were talking about needing to put more energy into your website. Help me understand why. Like why where does your marketing effort go and how does it relate to you getting more of the kind of work that you're trying to get?
My marketing, it's kind of a span of between networking. So, back to in person networking, and that's with other attorneys. But that aside, I mean, I set up my website myself when I first started. I know it's bare bones. Um, Other attorneys don't look at it. I don't think they care
Sure.
too much. Well, that's a lie. Defense attorneys will always look up your website, but it's for clients. So, when their case is referred to me, they can go and look and read a little bit about me just to kind of legitimate.
See that you're a real person,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes. That, and it's a real business. Um, and with that, I'm mostly on social media. So when you're talking, just direct to consumer cases, I get them from social media.
Mm.
It's Instagram, Facebook, it's friends and family and friends of friends asking me for help, which has been happening since I graduated law school, but now I can just, make some money off of it. And,
Yeah.
um, and then the other half of my cases, they're coming from other attorneys. So I'm meeting attorneys at networking events. I'm asking them about their practice and what they do and let them know a little bit about my background and then ask how I can help them. Like what are you struggling with right now?
Mm.
And depending on what they answer, I can maybe help and maybe not. So I am lucky to be able to work with a handful of attorneys in my community who and sometimes it's on the back end, other times they just pass me the whole case. It changes each time, but that I can collaborate with other firms.
Yeah, it's it. I would a couple things. One, I was talking to a lady yesterday named Stacy Brown Randall, who we'll have on at some point, who talks about referrals without asking. That's her whole kind of shtick. And I was thinking about that with your marketing. Like there may well not be a big ROI for you going to create the machine that is required to get direct to consumers. I mean, social media is a nice quick distribution, right? Like you get
Mhm.
distribution just for showing up. Obviously, as the social media platform gets more mature, that's less and less true. They start to throttle the thing and say, "Give me money." But early on, as long as you can chase cheap attention, that's well worth doing. And I was thinking also when we went yesterday to this school where they train people to become dog trainers or groomers or whatever it is that they do in these pet related careers. The lady there was talking about this girl who this young lady who came through the program and was super socially awkward, like just did not interact. She was like, I don't know how she's going to market out into the world. She's so introverted. This is such a problem. Well, she got out. She was a groomer, and immediately what she did was what you just described. She just reached out to every vet in the area and said, "Do you have a groomer?" And half of them said no. And she said, "Well, I can help you with that." And she just overnight, by going to where the work already was, right? She didn't have to
Right.
go create work through direct marketing, and the ROI was there. I think again, a pet peeve of mine is we talk to lawyers like they've got to create this whole marketing machine, including this elaborate, robust website and all this strategy. And I sometimes feel like that's more about selling stuff to lawyers than it is to getting to actual people. Like sometimes the behind the scenes marketing really is the best stuff. Like relationships for your particular practice is the best thing, which is just
Yeah, and I commend the attorneys that have done that they put in the SEO work.
sure.
They're but most of them they'll have a call center, right? So it's a 24/7 chat box. Like all of that is constantly running, and that's a lot of overhead
Yeah.
on top of, paying for all the marketing, and that's great, and that's just not a business model that I took in. I mean, what I did is saved up so I could pay my bills and overhead for 6 months and
Mm.
said, all right, let's try this.
Better than I did. There was no 6 months of savings when I started. And my student loan debt load would verify that.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I I wonder then, as you're moving forward, how what's next, right? Like what do you see as you evaluate these things, as you take moments in conversations like this and say, wait a second, this is what's actually working. I want to put my effort here as opposed to there. How are you redirected? We're coming into the last quarter of the year. Any thoughts on what's next, on how you might double down your efforts or try something new? What's next for your firm?
You know, I'm just hitting my 1 year mark, and I know I've gotten a lot of generalization advice from other people, and they say the first year is the hardest. Essentially, by year 3, 4, you're finding your groove and you're picking your path. So I'm not so committed to this is what I have to stick to. I'm still trying out new things. I'm working with different attorneys and different firms and finding what kind of cases I like to take, which ones maybe aren't for me. I'm have lots of car accident cases because Southern California, there's going to be a lot of car accidents, but I'm also branching out into, more premises cases, slip and falls, um,
Yeah.
accidents at work, things like that. So of just trying to kind of keep an open mind. I know they always say, to niche down, but I think by just being in PI injury, that's enough of a niche. So
Mm.
if you focus on just car accidents, is that going to be around in 10 more years? As they automate
Yeah.
these
Especially in
automated
Southern
cars. I don't
California.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have this tendency just as human beings to want to create a linear narrative in our lives and especially for other people's lives. I found family reunions go smoother if I have a job that sounds like something everyone's heard of, right? Like if I try to describe what I do now to my family, it just quickly deteriorates into them giving me a bunch of advice which is so stupid and uninformed and has nothing to do with what I do. Um, Ranging from you should go get a job, thanks mom, to here's how you use TikTok. I mean, it just is all over the place when I try to describe what I do. And so we have this tendency, right, to like create linear narratives for ourselves so that we can satisfy other people. I think it's actually really wise that you're saying, I don't need that right now. I don't have to have a straight line from I did this when I was 4 to I did this when I went to school to now I do that. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You're living in the now a bit, which I think is wise.
Yeah. Well, I think up until graduating law school, I always had that linear path. And you weren't going to sway me from it. I was going to go to law school.
Right.
And then once I did, and everyone's like, what's next? And it's like, well, guess I got to find a job. So
I
I
hadn't thought of that part. Yeah.
I didn't have such like a specific area that I was going to practice in. It changed a lot.
Mm.
And then just the more I thought about it in like true values, I went to school for two reasons. One, to help people, and two, to make my own money. And, if I can do both those, then we'll just kind of see where the practice takes me.
Cool. Well, I think that's great. For people who want to learn more about your practice, reach out to you, learn about your journey, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can email me or find me on Instagram. So my email is jessica@collins-legal.com. And my Instagram handle is collins.legal.
Very cool. All right. And for all of you watching, this will be over on all the places later. If you want to watch through it again, maybe get some of the references. For those of you who are listening to this on iTunes or watching on YouTube, join the Lawyer Forward Facebook group. Just go over to Facebook and search for Lawyer Forward and answer the questions so I know you're not a Russian bot, because those gorgeous Russian women bots just love this face. What can I say? So answer the questions. Y'all join the group, and we will see you guys next time at the next Lawyer Forward Live on a Friday. Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Mike.